Okay. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our Thursday conference, and we have some guests today who not only are bringing interesting information and data to us, but also a healthier lunch than we normally have, which is good. Anyways, it's my pleasure. I'm actually just going to introduce Brian and then have him, as they take part, introduce the rest of the team. Brian's been and his team have been working with the program for a couple years now. When we came to the realization that we need to cover the topic of healthcare data analytics more and better. About the same time, Brian had introduced himself to me, and it's turned out to be a great partnership. And actually, I believe that the course it's no longer a kind of generic course number. It actually has its own course number now, which is an accomplishment. Brian Sikora and his team are from Kaiser. Kaiser is a national leader in informatics in so many ways, not only with their implementation of Epic, but also the work that they do in data analytics, and being a true integrated delivery system, have all of the right incentives that sometimes private healthcare settings don't have to manage their data and coordinate their care. Brian himself is, I can't remember your exact, senior director for data analytics, or okay. And he did his undergraduate work at Pitt in finance, and then he has a Master of Health Administration from Portland State. He also was named a couple years ago as one of the 40 under 40 people who are up and coming in the Portland area who are under 40. So I won't take any more of his time. I will hand it off to him, and then he can introduce the. Oh yeah, no, I've already said that. So I'm going to hand the mic back to him.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. Again, I'm Brian Sikora, and today we're going to talk about healthcare analytics. Again, we're all from Kaiser, and we'll do some quick introductions here. But joining me today, we have Delilah Moore, who is the manager of our pharmacy analytics team at Kaiser Permanente. Ryan Henderson, who is manager of our technical administration and production support team, and the same group. We have Binitha, who recent graduate of this program, and is our information analyst supporting continuing care services, which is all of Kaiser's home-based programs. So hospice, home health, wound care, primary care at home, and I'm probably missing a few. Skilled nursing, yeah. And we have Tom Gant. Tom is an information analyst supporting our utilization management programs and our Sunnyside and Westside hospitals. And Terri Stetzer, who is a business systems analyst on our production support team, and works to support all of the systems that we use within the team on a daily basis. So what we're going to talk about today is basically I'll open things up. We're going to talk a little bit about analytics and healthcare. We're going to highlight some analytical roles and skills to be successful in those roles for all of you if you're thinking about going into this as a career specialty. And then we'll finally at the end, we're going to wrap up with a panel discussion with the analysts themselves, which will really be open time for you to ask any questions you want, day in the life, I mean, whatever. That'll be your time. And finally, we'll have time at the end. We'll hang out if you want to talk, have any questions at the end of the session as well. So I get asked a lot, is like, well, what is analytics? It's like, and really, I look at it as basically as like it's a systematic use of data to discover business insights. I think that's really the key piece. Is like we at Kaiser Permanente are very fortunate in this field because we have the world's largest and most complete civilian medical record system in our hands. So we have data, a complete set of data, not just a slice of data, for 11 million covered lives spanning now upwards of 10 years. And it's growing every single year. So from that perspective, is like we use our medical record system plus our care, our coverage, our benefits, our contracts, our financials to really use that data in a systematic way to help drive the organization forward. Our goal is always to get the right information into the right hands of our leaders so that they can make appropriate decisions for strategic planning purposes, for care delivery, treatment plans, budget forecasting, staff scheduling, you name it, we pretty much cover it. Analytics can be descriptive, predictive, or prescriptive. The bulk of the world still lives in the descriptive land. We're trying to push our organization more and more into the predictive land. I don't think we're quite into the prescriptive space yet. We have had some successes on the predictive front. That's a major focus of our year coming up ahead of us, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And finally, analytics, to me, it includes data analysis, data integration, metric design, reporting dashboard scorecards, so that user presentation layer, business intelligence platforms, so we'll talk about a little bit some of those tools, exploratory, predictive analytics, text mining. Text mining, we can also bucket voice mining and pushing into the future, image mining as well. And it's also, I think this is an important aspect as well, it's training and education. So what we deliver, we have to make sure the organization can use. So a big part of our role is not only delivering quality, sound product, but making sure that the decision makers in the organization, our physicians, our nurses, our managers, supervisors, vice presidents, know how to use what we're giving them as well. So a big part of what we do in our world is that training and education component as well. So with that in mind, from the analyst perspective, I think there's three key components to analytics. And it's really, this is all around connecting people to information. The first core bucket of skills I view as an essential to be a successful analyst is programming skills. You have to know how to work with data. For us inside Kaiser, our main two languages that we use are just plain old SQL, and we use SAS. SQL and SAS seem to be two of the mainstays. SQL you can leverage inside Cognos, you can leverage it inside business objects. There's many tools SQL is embedded inside, but SQL is one of the foundational languages of data analytics. SAS is one of the leading platforms in the healthcare industry, so if you have the opportunity to learn SAS or poke around in SAS, as students and educators, you typically get free access to SAS through their website. That's one of the foundational tools as well to extract data from multiple sources, integrate data, and then finally get to the point where I can actually analyze the data. Typically find about 80% of the work is in that extract and cleaning up, and then once you get to that point, the analyzing is the really fun part is about 20% of the effort, is the hard part's getting it extracted and organized. Critical thinking skills are that's the second component of what I view as the three foundational pieces. And you can be a great programmer, but if you don't have critical thinking skills, you're not going to produce valuable insights. You're not going to be very effective inside your organization. So what I look at for that is methodical approaches to complex problems. I think in the question and answer, you can ask some of these guys, some of the gals, some of the problems they face on a daily basis. They could be big, gigantic problems. How do we contain the cost of specialty drugs? Where do you even start with that? If you can approach those problems, you have to approach from a very methodical mindset in order to make progress and deliver results to the organization. Because if not, it's like you're boiling the ocean. And finally, communication skills, I think, are the third key pillar. You can be a great programmer, you can have very strong critical thinking skills, but if you don't have the ability to translate that information to the receivers of it, the people that need to act upon it, the value of your insights will not be realized. So the combination of programming, critical thinking, and communication skills are what makes, I think that's the magic three to be a strong analyst. And the communication piece is it's probably the hardest to train, and it's one of the most difficult we have inside the organization. That's why I talked about on the last slide, is that education and training component is so important for us as well, because some of what we do, if you're developing a predictive model or a regression model or even just a metric or a dashboard, it takes a lot to explain how to digest what's on that piece of paper or on that screen to the decision maker. going to pause. Any questions so far? And if you do have questions, hit the button when you ask it. I was supposed to remind you of that. So analytics in healthcare is like, I think you can find analytics spread through every aspect of healthcare organizations. At high levels, I think the big buckets are like we leverage analytics to improve our clinical effectiveness, improve member satisfaction. We leverage analytics to improve operational efficiency, which goes to the affordability component. And we leverage analytics for financial and administrative performance. And for us inside our organization, it's largely on the health plan side of Kaiser. Yeah. From a clinical quality perspective, improving the quality of care is like you can't improve what's not measured. I mean, I think that's just across the board. We have had initiatives in the past where, like, one of our major 2015 successes was we closed our colorectal cancer screening gap between the Latino population and our average population by providing the right metrics and reports to our case management program. We closed that gap in less than 1 year. That would not have been achievable without our analysts working with the case management program leaders to provide them with the information they needed. One, to know who to target, but two, to give them metrics to monitor their performance. I think that's a good example of how you can drive real meaningful change using data and analytics in the clinical setting. From an
it's a great point that you just made about if it's not measured, you can't improve it. But there's also has to be a cultural change or a paradigm to get buy-in to get those measurements. So for the example you just gave, how much was stuff that was already being collected versus you needed additional resources to collect the data that your analysts would need to make the decisions or to be able to model the data?
We're fortunate because in a lot of cases we have the data. It's being collected somewhere. It might be collected in a primary care visit or through an urgent care visit or over one of our nurse advice lines. The data is there. It's just very disparate. And if you don't have a way to pull it together and look at it through the right lens, it's there, but at the same time, if you don't look at it the right way, it doesn't exist. It's like, so for the decision makers that needed to act upon it, we were the ones that pulled that data together and gave them the metrics that allowed them to act upon it, but it all existed inside the organization somewhere.
But that is a good point, because there are times when
Turn your mic on.
you hold on to a project. So there are times as an analyst that you get pulled onto a project to measure how much of an impact it's making, but everything that they're trying to measure is stuck in free text. So part of your job might be to inform the person that's customizing the system to say, please build out a field that we can use to collect this. So I think sometimes it's a back and forth where you're also informing them to modify the system so that you can collect something discreetly and track it. Ideally, it's already there, but it isn't always.
That's a good point.
So. You raised that, sorry, but I can't resist. So if it is in free text, it's there. It's not structured, and obviously there's confidence issues around that, but that is the opportunity then for NLP or other aspects, which I know would be resources. Is it actually more efficient internally just to have them start collecting, structure a new field and start collecting, or to actually invest in some of those methods to extract?
In my mind, it depends on the purpose of what you're trying to do. If you're trying to create a list report, or you're trying to create if you're trying to get information in the hands of a case manager, or you're trying to create a metric to monitor performance, the structured route's the way to go. If you're looking for if you're doing an exploratory or segmentation analysis, is like the text, we've been successful using text mining techniques for that type of purpose.
Yeah, and sometimes when you force it to be captured discreetly, then you can report it back on the front end of the system too. So there's reporting tools, which we don't do a lot with, but you can, with an Epic, create a reporting workbench report that's pointing to that discrete field, as opposed to if you're mining the text, there's not much that the front end can really do to summarize that.
On the operational front, I think a lot of the focus is around workflow throughput, like staff scheduling. Are we making the most of our resources? Are we moving people through the hospital in an appropriate way, like measuring and trying to minimize time between discharge order and actual discharge, surgical on-time starts. It's a lot of our focus on operational effectiveness is on patient flow through the organization. And then finally, on the financial front is like there are aspects of utilization management, making sure the right care for the right person in the right setting. Supplies, I mean, especially surgical supplies, drug supplies are incredibly expensive. Risk management, fraud and abuse are all targets for analytics on the financial side. Inside Kaiser is like you'll have this in your slide, and this is the summary of our data and analytics strategy that we drive towards. The top half of the arc is really the content areas that we view as our focuses. Population health is a major focus. Delivering actionable insights to the operations of the organization, demonstrating Kaiser Permanente's value to the community and our employer groups, transforming our care delivery settings. So this pushes us into the virtual care world. We're introducing video visits to all 35 specialties, primary care, urgent care this year. Analytics will be a major part of how we measure that because no organization in the country is deployed on that scale. And we're going to, so we have to figure out, like, we have to guide the organization on how do we respond, what's the right number of visits, like how do we schedule. It's pretty cool stuff when you don't have a precedent to follow. And finally, we continue to drive on advanced analytics and innovation, and which is one of our major themes for the year as well. The bottom half is kind of what I have to do every day, which is governance, making sure we have the right resource, making sure we have the right people, making sure that we maintain the products we have, and trying to coordinate all of this inside a very large and complex organization. With that opening, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ryan and Delilah, who are going to talk about a little bit about the 4 analyst roles we have inside the organization, and then apply them to some of the projects we've just finished in 2015 and are planning for 2016.
Hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. So some of the analyst roles that we have 4 really distinct analyst roles. And then within each one of those roles, we have 4 different levels right now. So the way these kind of look is if you look at information analysts, those are really more of the business facing. They sit within the care delivery areas. They sit within finance. They sit within the operational aspects. They're really working one-on-one with the business partners, understanding the daily needs, gathering the requirements, building out ad hoc analysis, that kind of thing. From there, it would go into like the data analysts. These are the guys that are doing a lot of the foundational builds for data marts, ETL, work using Informatica, Oracle, SAS as examples, building those real robust infrastructures. Brian talked a little bit about the 80%, 20%. If we spend 80% of our time gathering the data, the more we can get into structured marts and getting business rules agreed to, bought off on, and embedded into those marts, the more time we can spend on the analytical piece. So trying to improve that 20% range. Ideally, right, we'd be able to flip it. So we're spending 20% of our time finding the data and doing 80% of the time doing the analysis on it. From there, it goes to like the report analysts. The report analysts are really the presentation layer. They take those structured data marts and prepare the reports for large distributions, canned reports, those kinds of things. They're dealing with Cognos. They're using SAS. They're using Crystal Reports primarily as the main tool, and dabbling into Tableau. The business systems analysts, there's really 2 ways to kind of look at the business systems analyst. The way we use it is really to support the systems that the rest of the analysts use. So when we talk about an Oracle, Informatica, SAS, we're running on a national shared platform. So we might be doing work for the Northwest region, but we're running on a platform that's based in California or Maryland, or it's kind of widespread within the Kaiser area. So that team does a lot of the content migration work, coordination with the national IT groups on system configuration, making sure all the tools are working appropriately, those kinds of things. So that's kind of an overview of the 4 different roles. So within each role, there's 4 levels. So if you kind of the high level look at it is level 1 would kind of be entry level production support. type role, being able to manage and run the current content. A level 2 would be able to do everything the level 1's doing, but getting into doing some light remediation work or enhancement work on some of that existing content. Level 3 is really being able to develop a new solution from beginning to end. And then a level 4 would be setting standards and applying those standards to the rest of the analysts throughout the group.
And just to add on the level 4, that's typically our lead role. So in addition to the technical expertise, you're also serving as a mentor for the rest of the team, helping to train up and helping your level 1s, your level 2s mature up to the level 3. And looking for integration points across the 4 roles.
Yeah. So each of the 4 roles contains an aspect of the other ones. So they do cross a lot, they do work together a lot, and we do have examples of members of the team moving between the different roles, going from a reporting analyst to data analyst or to business systems analyst or over to an IA, depending on their area of interest and focus. So that was kind of a high-level look at. Any questions on the roles?
Clarify what the two of you. So it's 4 roles in terms of that are up on there, but then when you say levels, is it a level within each role, or the roles themselves are hierarchical, and so you're moving from data analyst to report analyst?
No, good question. It's level within each role. So there'd be a data analyst 1, 2, 3, 4, RA 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing.
And this may make it a little more clear that they are kind of standalone roles. I mean, like Ryan said, we have had people that have moved across, and that's just because maybe they've got more technical expertise and they're more interested. Once they start getting into a role, they realize, oh, well, actually maybe a BSA is more up my alley. So this slide just kind of provides a little bit more detail. Yes.
Yeah, so thinking of this from the standpoint of an academic program, do people come into these roles with different backgrounds, or do people come in with a sort of generic background and then kind of specialize once they're on the job into these sorts of roles?
It's kind of been a mix. So some will come in, specialize into certain areas. Others will come in with more of a broad background. Kind of differs person to person. We try to make sure we look at the team as a whole, trying to fill any gaps, that kind of thing. We're not trying to necessarily get the exact same person in every role, but trying to get more of a broad view of things.
And yeah.
We kind of look for the core of the 3 buckets in the first slide of programming skills, critical thinking, communication. We look for the basis of those 3, and if someone has a solid foundation of those 3, it's like we can just train on content. Or if you're super strong in critical thinking and communication skills and show a propensity along learn programming, it's like you slot those folks in the level 1 roles, and then we can teach them the programming.
But yeah, I mean, we do actually have a pretty diverse range of academic backgrounds on our team. Anywhere from physics, probably social sciences, anthropology. I was kinesiology, and I liked analyzing my data in my PhD program, so yeah, a few graduates of this program. But yeah, it really depends, and if you like, you're analytically oriented, then this could be a fit.
How big are each of these teams at your organization? So
in total, our department is roughly 60 analysts. If you kind of break it up across these, I think there's maybe 4 or so business systems analysts. There's probably 10 to 12 in the RA and DA space, but the majority are the IA space, and that seems to be the growing area right now.
And the reason we have so many is because those are the business-focused analysts, so we have them living out in pockets of the organization. So there's just a lot. The other ones are a little more, we call them like a core, so they support a lot of the core functions in our department. And then the ones that are kind of embedded in operations, because we have so many different areas to support. Okay, so you've gotten kind of an overview of what those types of roles are. We wanted to highlight some of our successful projects from 2015, just to give you an idea of the type of work that our analysts are doing. So one of the projects, we had an information analyst partner with we call it the RTMC, the Regional Telephonic Medicine Center. So what was happening with this project is they were not capturing the information discreetly enough. I think we were doing some mining of the text, more or less, to provide the reporting in that space, but it wasn't providing the right information to our decision makers. So our Health Connect team, which is the Kaiserized version of Epic, we call it Health Connect. So our analysts partnered with our Health Connect application coordinators. They created a smart form that was specifically used to track the RTMC workflow. And so an outcome of that project was we have a really nice looking dashboard now that senior leadership is looking at, and we can see, you know, information that was kind of hidden to the leaders before. So the second one is actually a project that's going on in my team with the Tableau experiment. Brian mentioned Tableau. We're kind of just starting to dabble with Tableau. It's a really cool tool to use. So we're using it in our pharmacy space to look at our high-cost specialty drugs. So that's really one of the areas for 2016 that our organization is focusing on, reducing the cost of our high-cost specialty drugs. How can we kind of contain our spend in this space because it just keeps growing? So this Tableau dashboard gives our leadership the opportunity to drill in, you know, and they can see, okay, this biologics category is really expensive. What is really driving that? And so they can drill in to see the specific drug, and then even underneath that, which doctors are prescribing that drug, so that the pharmacist can partner with the doctors to make some changes. Segmentation models. So yeah, we've used advanced analytics to try and understand where we're losing our members. So we've used statistical methodologies to predict who's terminating by choice. And so if we can come up with characteristics that are similar in that population, then we can use it to try and, you know, prevent future membership loss.
For imaging, we've had an imaging data mart for a little while. The IA that supported imaging actually was part of the business and not part of the DIME team. This year we actually were able to roll into DIME. What that allowed us to do is actually get more information back on the uses of the data and what the business was looking at. There was also leadership changes in imaging, so they were changing the way they were looking at things. And so what we were able to do is gather that information, and we're going through the process of making enhancements to our underlying marts to be able to add flexibility to the ad hoc requests. So in the span of June to December, we had probably 40 plus ad hoc requests out of imaging for data that wasn't available within our Cognos Mart. What our plan is by adding in, I think it's about 7 or 8 different data elements, we'll now be able to handle at least 80% of that as a self-service type methodology. So that shift of the 80% to gather 20% analysis, but this is kind of a prime example of that.
So can I ask you a question? When you say imaging, what type of imaging are we talking about? And are you really just analyzing the metadata around the images, or are you actually pulling features from the images, or how is it being used in analytics at Kaiser?
Right, so it's not the actual, we're not analyzing the images themselves. This is around the members' use of the images, looking at MRI, ultrasound, CAT scans, those kinds of things. Looking at utilization as a primary view of what we're
Utilization by members or utilization by your clinical teams?
Both. Yeah.
And just to call out, and Tom actually was involved with utilization management metrics data. So when I pass the mic over when we open it up, I'll let him speak to that project because it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then Terri was involved in the Java code. So we try to improve the processes as much as we can. Some of the stuff we have control over, some of it we don't. But we try to look at different ways to automate, right? That's our main goal, is to try to automate as much as possible to reduce errors, to reduce turn time, to make the data more accurate and available quicker. So I can let Terri talk a little bit about what they did around the Java piece.
Quick question. Some of these projects seem to be patient-oriented to make outcomes better. Some of them seem to be more establishment-based so that they can reduce costs and so forth. Like the example you said with partnering with the doctors to reduce the high expensive drugs. How do you balance like patient care and like costs of care, and also overall, as an analyst, should be our job to make that decision, or is there a higher level?
And that's, yeah,
It's an ongoing, it's a daily balancing act. Our request log right now is over 1,200 active requests, so the demand just never ends. But basically what we do is we work very closely with the leaders of the organization. In this case, a lot of the folks that set our priorities are the physician chiefs over our population strategy group. They're the administrators of our hospitals. It's our chief financial officer. And it's a conversation with them as to what are the priorities, what's most important. And we always make sure we're using our limited resources on the most important work, but that is spread. It is spread across the patient care realm. It's spread across like the operations management function, the insurance function, and finances. So it's balanced. We have folks that are pretty much dedicated in each of those areas. So but at the same time, we have to cover all bases.
one thing I just wanted to add, because I'm not sure if it was really touched on, but a big part of what our department does, so Brian mentioned the mounds of data that we have. So it's really, and Ryan mentioned automation. So one of the big pushes that we try as a department is to organize our data in a way that we can create a self-service kind of framework for our customers. So we're not always, oh, can you pull this as an analyst, coming to us to ad hoc meet the need all the time. We want to establish that infrastructure that they can pull it themselves.
That's a good point. Like there's 60 analysts on our team roughly, but in 2015 we had just over 212,000 self-service reporter analysis run through our Cognos system, which are people inside the organization using the information on their own without our help. That's another part of how we serve the
I was just wondering, is the 60 analysts for like the Pacific Northwest, for Portland, for all of what is the region?
So for the most part, it's for the Northwest region. So part of the automation and the Cognos pieces we talked about, we recently expanded our finance reporting to cover Colorado region as well. So we do have some examples of where we've shared our infrastructure, shared our reporting and stuff. So common set of reports, the same governance structure. So that way there's collaboration between the two regions on what work's being done in the finance space to move forward.
And we estimate we have about 3,000 full-time analysts across the Kaiser Permanente program nationwide. One of my projects this year is we're working on our first enterprise analytics strategy.
Kaiser-wide.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
Okay. You said it very calmly, but that's a really big deal.
Oh,
You push the button? Oh, okay.
I was curious if you are currently, or if you have planned to integrate other kind of non-traditional data types, genomics information, if that's coming into the clinical, or patient-reported outcomes, or environmental data.
Sure. So that's the answer is yes, plus some more, I think. So and it's part of when I mentioned our emerging enterprise analytics strategy. It's part of that work. We have a very large, the largest on the West Coast, from what I understand, a very large Hadoop server farm that is being built that will be our new big data platform for everything as we move forward.
So one thing I want to kind of point out is when we're talking about this stuff in Kaiser, the thing you got to think about is scale. And so for the Northwest, we've got roughly 17 medical office buildings. We've got 2 full Kaiser hospitals. We've got 10,000 plus employees. When we start looking across all the different regions, we've got almost 40 hospitals across the entire Kaiser program, 600 plus medical office buildings. So when these things are being built and the tools, we're testing for like a specific example, that kind of thing, but then the next step is really understanding how to scale that. And that gets to be tricky at times when you're looking at different installations of some of the software, the tools, and trying to standardize that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, so this slide just gives you kind of a preview of some of the projects that we have planned for 2016. So one area, our population health team is working on building out an infrastructure that's going to allow for Cognos reporting, so that self-service capability. You would think by now we'd have something, but this is kind of a new area for our organization to build out the self-service capability. And the idea with that is to provide reporting, so we have an on-site wellness component to our population health program. So we go out to our employer groups and set up shop on-site, and they do blood pressure screenings and address certain care gaps. So we're creating this infrastructure that's got all the information that can be readily available to our clinical staff when they're doing these on-site wellness events, for our employer group reporting, quality initiatives, and some of our community benefit programs. So we have driving schools, some really cool programs where we're out in the community partnering with organizations. So this population health data is foundational to support those programs. I don't know, we're doing some work. You want to speak to this?
So the state of Washington passed an all-payer claims database legislation, I believe in 2014, but implementation is taking place this year. So as we have members in Washington, and it was in the news recently, we're merging with Group Health, so Group Health will become Kaiser Permanente in the Seattle area. We are participating with the state of Washington in the rulemaking process to make sure the all-payer claims database has the right, and particularly for us, is like we have to make sure that an integrated care delivery system and encounter-based system, not a claims-based system, can be accurately represented in such a database. So we're very active in rulemaking right now, which involves a lot of trips to Olympia, and we'll soon be writing code to make sure our submissions are done as that process unfolds.
Can I ask a question? Are you guys involved with the Oregon
Yes,
all-payroll?
very involved. We have a similar challenge with Oregon right now where it's a claims-based system and we're an encounter-based system. So we're working actively with the OHA on that process. And I sit on the technical advisory board for the APAC group and represent us on we have near weekly conversations with OHA on that front, yes.
Some of the other projects, some of the more exciting ones that involve kind of the predictive analytics space are within the hospital. So we're looking for some near real-time hospital demand and throughput so that our, I guess, they can better staff based on, the real-time data needs. So we pull reports and we can tell you what happened yesterday, but being able to leverage the information that same day to be able to make a decision about who needs to come in to work to make sure that our hospitals are staffed appropriately. Also, we're venturing into some new voice analytics software, which we're looking to do some data mining with, which is going to be really cool. So that's an exciting one rolling out. And then some inpatient staff productivity benchmarking. So is that Action OI?
Yeah. So at the hospital for the last 4 years or so, we've been doing benchmarking with a tool called Action OI. So it's through Truven is the provider. What we're looking at is actually expanding that out into the primary and specialty care areas.
Oh, I see. So with the project about the real-time demand in hospitals, I was curious, so I know with the Emergency Department Information Exchange, has that data been helpful in your shop? Or I know it's helpful for clinicians, but wondering your interaction with that.
Yeah, we can actually use the new ED system differently than most organizations because we're a closed network organization. So for us, it actually allows us, it alerts us real time when any Kaiser Permanente member is admitted to an emergency room anywhere in Oregon. And we talked about the Regional Telephonic Medicine Center earlier. It's pretty much our doctor command center. So whenever we see a Kaiser member admitted to any hospital in the state of Oregon, a physician from the RTMC will reach out to that hospital and begin care coordination so that we can make sure that the care is, one, that the patient is stabilized, but then that the care is delivered to Permanente medical standards.
That's actually great. We heard about Susan Otter from the state was our speaker here a couple weeks ago and told us about it. And it's fascinating that you guys can make use of it. And I mean, it demonstrates the value of information and informatics and analytics when the care model changes. In a fee-for-service setting, you come in the emergency department, they bill whoever your payer is and so forth. But for you guys as an integrated delivery system, it's really important that money not be wasted in another emergency department, and so it's interesting.
The other hospitals don't like it because we bring our members back as fast as we can, and Tom and his team are looking at leveraging the ED data. If we want to get it into our data warehouse, because if we can get into the data warehouse, we think we can create some leading indicators of ED use rate, which right now is typically lagged about 6 weeks, and we think we can get ED use rate leading indicators down to same day with the ED data if we can use it.
So kind of piggybacking on that with the pre-manage that's coming out, also kind of piggybacking on Eddie, do you see that as being useful as well, since that'll be reaching out more to the primary care clinics and such, or do you think that you kind of already have a handle on that because of being an integrated health system?
Our primary care is largely all in-house. Where it might, with our recent Eugene expansion, it might come into play a little bit in Eugene because we don't have a big capital footprint in Eugene yet, but by and large, the main part of our service area, all of our primary care services are in-house.
Is the, you might not be able to name it, but is it something akin to VoiceBase, the voice analytics software that you're using?
It's called NICE.
Nice.
And I don't know what it stands for. I think it's an acronym.
But
NICE is a nice software, though.
But you're using this for speech analytics, or you're using it for interaction modeling?
Yeah, so basically the way it works is we have some very large call centers. We have an appointing call center. We have the nurse advice line. We have the RTMC. We have a membership services call center. And our theory is we get thousands of calls every day. So like if you take residents of Beaverton School District, for example, we can geotag all of our members. We know what Kaiser members are teachers at Beaverton, what students go to Beaverton and are Kaiser members. We think we can use like the NICE software to like mine all of those phone calls and say, if we sense a flu outbreak occurring at Beaverton, we can alert them and say, hey, we got a lot of calls from people in your area. We think you're about to have a big flu outbreak. That's our theory, at least, of how we can use some of this phone system data.
In terms of the information that you're gathering from, say, Epic, how much of it is built out using smart data elements? One of the projects mentioned smart forms. How much of it is using things that are kind of foundational or come with the foundation installation of Epic?
So that's a great question, and I would say actually Kaiser Northwest was one of the first adopters, so we've done substantial customizations to our system, which is good and bad, because that means that we can't leverage a lot of the out-of-the-box Epic products as is, because we have created a lot of smart forms, smart data elements. It's kind of bittersweet. I've analyzed a lot of the data from our smart data elements, and it can get a little bit messy, though it is a quick and easy way to make something discrete when otherwise it might have been free text. So I would say yes, we do, and especially speaking from the pharmacy perspective, we use them a lot for tracking our disease management programs, our outreach. Just, it's an easy way for someone to build in, was the outreach, different, I guess we use them a lot for tracking productivity also. So yeah, I would say we use them a lot.
We're open the floor to questions. Just general Q&A is like we have 3 of our analysts here that can answer any questions you have about like what the work is like on the ground. So fire away.
So as far as the enterprise-wide project goes, how much is being shared now?
Nothing. No, it's in formation phase.
Share regionally now, right? Like, don't you sometimes share with California?
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking with the public. Is like it? No, it's still yeah within the within the organization. I mean, it is. There's representatives from all aspects of the organization participating.
But right now, you're not sharing
Oh, you're saying when we share
data
data? Oh,
among
okay, I
the,
get, okay,
all
yes,
the
we do
Kaisers?
share. Sharing is a bit challenging because we are on Epic. We have Kaiser Permanente has standardized on Epic, but due to our size and when we installed Epic in the early 2000s, there was no technology available that would allow us to build a single instance of Epic. So inside Kaiser Permanente, we actually have, I believe it is 14 instances of Epic across the organization. So we have a core build, but then there is, as you can imagine with 14 instances, there is variation. So that hinders our ability to purely share. And on the analytics side, we're heavy users of SAS and Cognos. We haven't standardized on our analytic tools yet because the organization is in the process of going through that. So some regions use business objects, some use SAS, some use Cognos, some use Tableau, and that Crystal report. So that hinders us as well at this point.
So my question is really for all of you. If reflecting on our students, are there any classes that or training that you wish you'd had coming into the role that you have now?
Joe, is it on? Yeah. Hi there. I think I graduated this December from the program, so I could talk about it. I think, like Brian said, we extensively use SAS and SQL and also Excel for ad hoc analysis. So I think having a good background in database is really, really good. SAS builds on a lot of programming, especially object-oriented type programming. So if we have SAS training as a part of statistics, here I did Stata. So when I went to Kaiser, I underwent 2 trainings for SAS. So I think if we have SAS as a part of statistics or as an option, when I took the statistics program here, the professor actually allowed me to give some answers in Stata as well as SAS. I thought that kind of a flexibility was really good. Data analytics program that happens here every summer is really good because I think a lot of if somebody is coming from a business background like me who don't have a knowledge about what is healthcare data analytics, I think that program was really helpful. The overview program that Dr. Hirsch has given is really good because when you go into a program like Kaiser, you really want to know what are the different components of healthcare. So that was highly useful. Medical decision making. I think that was, though I'm not in medical decision making, I guess the frameworks that was taught was really important, the probabilistic decision making, those kind of stuff. I guess we do use maybe in the background, but I think it's a very good framework for thinking, critical thinking, I would say. What else? I think the Java programming classes were good because they definitely give you a framework in terms of understanding SAS. That's what I would want to say.
Yeah, I would agree with Binitha. Definitely the SAS and SQL skills are useful, very useful. And I also think anything you can do to enhance your skills in working with business partners, because I think I'm an information analyst, and one of the real unique aspects of that job is that we are working with people in operations. So we might be working with a nurse manager or someone like that who's requesting data, and we need to be able to explain the data to them in a way that they'll understand it. And then at the same time, they may ask for a request for data, and we need to go back to someone in our department with very strong technical skills, and they'll help us actually extract that data if we're having difficulty with it. So we have, we're communicating with a lot of different people with different skill sets. And so I think I would say just your consultative skills of working with business partners. And I think I don't know if a class exists that actually does that, but I think just working with groups, collaborating with others, and just understanding how others are approaching a problem, and kind of guiding your instruction, or if you're trying to train someone on something, trying to guide your instruction towards how that person will best understand it.
There's one more class, the healthcare quality class by Dr. Dole was really helpful.
Okay, so for me as a business systems analyst, the 2 classes that I wish I'd taken is one, collaboration techniques would have really helped a lot since I'm trying to get diverse areas to work together. And another one is proper documentation. When you're working with a lot of technical people, they just sort of put things down. But but you have to translate that into a language that the business partner understands. So learning how to translate IT jargon into a plain English document takes some real skill.
Yes, I think I'm getting more classes in my mind. There's clinical information systems that I guess for me, Dr. Mohan taught was really good. And we had an EPIC class. We have EPIC practical class. That was, I guess, really helpful because we do use EPIC.
Yeah, this is really good. You may not know this. We actually have a faculty retreat tomorrow where we're discussing how we're going to revise our curriculum along these lines. What about some of the newer big data kind of things like non-SQL databases, some of the analytical techniques that people apply to big data? Has that impacted you? I mean, your data certainly sounds big. But in some ways, it's very traditional kind of clinical healthcare data.
Yeah, we have large volumes of data, but I wouldn't say it's big data in the pure big data sense of the world. I think, at least within our organization, we have use case and pilot programs in place on how to leverage more of the data that reaches beyond relational databases, but it is not yet reached a point of broad-scale adoption. I would guess within a few years we will be tipping into that point, especially with some of the work going on, the investments being made in the organization. But I think we use large volume data. I mean, hundreds of millions of tables with hundreds of millions of records in them, but not necessarily. But it still fits within a table. No button. Okay, the question was, what's the role of Hadoop in our future? Right now is like we live in an environment where most organizations have a data warehouse. We have probably over a dozen data warehouses. And data marts coming out of our ears. So the vision for Hadoop is that we can land data in Hadoop once, and it can be used from Hadoop for any analytical purpose. And the architecture can be done in a way that we don't have to architect specific data marts over and over and over again. So we view it as a way to increase the throughput of the analytical community and, quite frankly, save a lot of dollars that we spend today on servers and database maintenance. Any other questions? Yeah, so wrapping up, first off, a shameless plug. We have several open positions on our team right now. Delilah is recruiting an information analyst for our pharmacy services. We are recruiting an information analyst for inpatient and continuing care services. We are recruiting a business systems analyst for our member administration area and the insurance side. And we have 2 data analyst positions open on our development and regulatory teams. And our summer internships, which we always have 2 to 3 on the team, will be posting in late March. And my final shameless plug is our data analytics course. We are an official course now, no longer kind of a experiment. It is co-sponsored by Kaiser Permanente and OHSU. Myself and Delilah will be up here teaching again this summer. And the on-campus week is August 22nd through 26th. So grab some of us if you want to learn more about the course. If you have any other questions, we will hang out for a few minutes and you can ask us individually or say hi. And otherwise, thank you for attending today. I hope you found this valuable.
That's really helpful. How do you, considering your open position,